Have you ever noticed that little hesitation when you ask your child about their day, specifically about their teacher? That slight pause, or maybe a quick, "they're fine," when you sense there might be more underneath? It's something so many of us see, that subtle signal that maybe, just maybe, talking to their teacher, or even about their teacher in a detailed way, feels a bit daunting for them. It's one of those quiet struggles, isn't it? Our children, who can be so full of chatter and questions at home, can sometimes feel like they've lost their voice when it comes to the person leading their classroom. They might seem scared or deeply uncomfortable about the idea of asking a question, admitting they don't understand something, or even just sharing a little piece of their world with their teacher. And as parents, seeing that can really tug at our hearts. We want them to feel confident, to feel seen and heard, especially in a place as important as school. We ache when we see them struggle with something that feels like it should be straightforward, yet for them, it's a mountain. So that's what we're going to explore together today. Not with quick fixes or a list of shoulds, because goodness knows, parenting isn't about checklists. Instead, we'll take a gentle, compassionate look at why this happens and how we can practically and lovingly help our children navigate these feelings. We're going to talk about building bridges of understanding, not just for them with their teachers, but for us with our children as we support them through this. It's about fostering that inner confidence, that quiet assurance that their voice matters, no matter how small they might feel in that big classroom, or how loud the other voices might seem. And the first step, the very foundation of helping them, often lies in us trying to understand what's truly going on in their heart and mind when they think about approaching their teacher. And when we say understanding, it's about looking beyond a simple label like shyness. Oh, it's so easy to just say, "Oh, they're just shy." And in some ways, that might be a part of it for some little ones. But often, there's a whole tapestry of reasons woven together that makes approaching a teacher feel like climbing a very big, very steep mountain for a child. Think about it from their perspective, from down where they stand, looking up. Teachers are, in their world, significant authority figures, and for some children, that authority can feel a little intimidating all by itself. It's not necessarily that the teacher is doing anything intentionally intimidating, but the role itself. The very idea of the teacher can loom large in a child's mind. They might worry, what if I say the wrong thing? Or what if my question is silly and everyone laughs? Or what if the teacher gets annoyed with me? There's a fear of judgment there, a fear of not measuring up that can be incredibly powerful and silencing. Sometimes it can stem from a past experience, perhaps even a very small one that we as adults might have overlooked or forgotten. Maybe they once asked a question and felt brushed off, not because the teacher meant to, but because the moment was hectic. Or perhaps they misunderstood a teacher's tone, a teacher who was tired or stressed, and took it to heart, internalizing it as a personal rejection. These little moments, these tiny paper cuts to their confidence, can leave a lasting impression on a child's tender heart. It could also be something as simple as the classroom environment. Is it a bustling, noisy room where it's hard to get a teacher's attention? Where it feels like you have to shout to be heard? Or perhaps the teacher always seems incredibly busy, rushing from one task to another, and your child, being considerate, doesn't want to feel like a burden, an interruption. They're observant little beings, aren't they? They pick up on these subtle cues, on the energy of the room, on the perceived availability of the adult in charge. And then there's the very real possibility that they simply don't know how to initiate that conversation. We as adults have had years, decades even, of practice in navigating social interactions, in approaching people in positions of authority, in asking for help. Children are still learning these skills. It's a developmental process. They might not know the right words to use or the right time to ask. It's like wanting to cross a stream but not being sure where the stepping stones are or if they're too wobbly to hold their weight. So, one of the first things we can do as their safe harbor, their trusted confidant, is to simply open a conversation about their feelings without any pressure or judgment. Instead of, "Why don't you just ask your teacher?" which can sometimes feel a bit like a dismissal of their very real anxiety. We could try something softer, more inviting. Maybe when they're relaxed, perhaps during a quiet moment before bed, while you're snuggled up reading, or while you're doing something mundane together like folding laundry, you could gently say, "You know, I've noticed sometimes it seems a bit tricky to talk to teachers. I remember feeling that way sometimes when I was your age. What's it like for you? What goes through your mind?" Creating that space for them to just talk, to unpack their worries without fear of us jumping in to fix it immediately, or to tell them their feelings are wrong, is so incredibly important. Listen for the clues. Listen with your heart. Are they worried about looking silly in front of their friends? Are they unsure of when it's okay to ask a question or how to get the teacher's attention politely? Are they picking up on a vibe from the teacher that makes them hesitant, even if they can't quite articulate it? Sometimes just naming the feeling, reflecting it back to them. "It sounds like you feel a bit nervous about that," or "It sounds like you're worried you might bother her," can be incredibly validating for them. It shows them you're trying to see it from their side, that you're truly listening. And understanding their specific why is like getting the right key to unlock the door. It helps us tailor our support in a way that truly resonates with them, rather than just offering generic advice that might miss the mark. It's about being a detective of their heart, with kindness and curiosity as our primary tools. Once we have a little more insight into what's making them hesitate, once we've gently explored those underlying currents, we can start to build their confidence from the ground up, right there in the safety and comfort of home. Think of your home as their practice ground, their rehearsal studio for life's little communication challenges. This isn't about putting them on the spot or forcing them into uncomfortable situations that might backfire and make them retreat further. It's more about playfully and gently equipping them with the tools and the inner reassurance they need. Role-playing can be surprisingly effective, and it doesn't have to be a formal sit-down, let's do a lesson affair. You could be washing dishes together, and you could say, "Hey, imagine I'm Mrs. Davison, and you need to ask about that confusing part of the science homework. How would you start?" And then you can embody a kind, patient, approachable teacher, the kind of teacher you hope they have. Let them practice asking their question, and you can offer gentle feedback. Not in a critical way, but more like, "That was a great start. Your voice was clear." And you know what else you could say if you wanted to add a bit more detail? You could also try ... The key here is to make it light, maybe even a little fun, and always child-led in terms of their comfort. You could switch roles. Let them be the teacher, and you be the child asking a question, perhaps even fumbling a bit yourself, to show them it's okay not to be perfect. This not only gives them a chance to practice their words from a less vulnerable position, but also to see the interaction from a different perspective. It demystifies the teacher's role a little bit, makes it less of an unknown. Through these playful interactions, they start to build a little bank of phrases they can use, like, "Excuse me, Mrs. Davison, when you have a moment, I have a question about," or "I'm not sure I understand this part. Could you please explain it again when you have time?" These aren't rigid scripts to be memorized, but more like familiar pathways, comfortable starting points that make the unknown feel a bit more navigable. Another vital part of creating this safe space is normalizing talking about feelings, especially the uncomfortable ones like anxiety or nervousness. When your child shares that they felt nervous about asking a question or even thinking about it, instead of saying, "Oh, don't be silly, there's nothing to be nervous about," which can inadvertently shut them down or make them feel ashamed of their feelings, try validating it. It's totally okay to feel nervous. Lots of people, even grown-ups, feel that way sometimes when they have to speak to someone important or ask for help. I still do sometimes. The brave part is noticing that feeling and thinking about what you need, even when you feel a bit wobbly inside. This teaches them that their feelings are acceptable signals, not enemies, and that courage isn't the absence of fear, but acting despite it, or even with it. You can also weave in stories, perhaps from your own childhood, about times you felt nervous but managed to speak up, and what that felt like before, during, and after. Or even point out characters in books or movies who overcome similar communication challenges, and talk about how they did it. These what-if scenarios, discussed in a relaxed, non-pressured way, help them mentally prepare. What if the teacher is busy talking to another student? What could you do then? Maybe wait for a quieter moment, or write your question down on a little piece of paper to give to them, or even just to help you remember it. It's about empowering them with options, with a plan B and even a plan C, so they don't feel trapped or defeated if the first attempt doesn't go perfectly, or if the situation isn't ideal. This home-based practice isn't about achieving perfection. It's about building familiarity, desensitizing the fear a little bit, and reducing the scariness of the unknown. It's like learning to ride a bike with training wheels in a safe, grassy park before heading out onto the sometimes bumpy, unpredictable road. Each little practice session, each validating conversation, adds another layer to their confidence, brick by brick. So we've been working on understanding their feelings and creating that wonderful, safe practice zone at home, filling their emotional toolkit. Now, let's think about how we can partner with them, almost like a gentle coach or a trusted strategist, when they have a specific need to communicate with their teacher. This is where we move from general practice to targeted preparation, helping them break down what can feel like a huge, overwhelming task into smaller, more manageable, bite-sized pieces. It's all about empowering them to take the lead, with us as their supportive, encouraging background crew, cheering them on quietly from the sidelines. One really practical thing we can do is help them clarify exactly what they need or want to say. Sometimes the anxiety comes from a jumble of thoughts and not knowing how to articulate them clearly and concisely. Sit down with them, not in an interrogative, "what's the problem now" way, but as a curious, helpful partner. So you're feeling a bit stuck on the history project, particularly the part about ancient Egypt. What's the specific part that feels most confusing? Or what information do you feel like you're missing? Let's see if we can figure out what question you want to ask Miss Anya about it. You can even help them write it down, maybe on a small sticky note or in a little notebook they keep for school. For some children, having that little note in their hand or even just tucked safely in their pocket can be a huge comfort. It's like a security blanket for their words. It means they don't have to rely solely on their memory when they're feeling a bit flustered or put on the spot. Then you can talk about the when and how. Brainstorm together, looking at it from all angles. When do you think would be a good time to talk to Miss Anya? Maybe when she first comes in before class officially starts, or perhaps when she asks if anyone has questions after explaining something. What about at the end of the day, when things are a bit calmer? Helping them identify these opportune moments, these little windows of possibility, can reduce the anxiety of trying to interrupt or find the right opening in a busy classroom. You could even suggest starting with smaller, less intimidating interactions if they're really struggling with the idea of a direct question about work. For example, if the idea of asking a complex academic question feels too much, maybe they could start by simply making eye contact and smiling when the teacher greets the class, or saying "good morning" to the teacher individually, or "thank you" at the end of a lesson. if the teacher helped them with something minor. These small, positive interactions can build a little bridge of familiarity and make bigger conversations feel less daunting later on. It's like dipping a toe in the water to test the temperature before deciding to swim. And let's not forget the power of positive self-talk, which we can gently model and encourage. Often, our children's internal monologue can be quite critical. Instead of them thinking, "I'm going to mess this up," or "the teacher will think I'm stupid," we can help them reframe it. You've thought about your question, you know what you want to say, and you even have it written down if you need it. You can do this. And remember, Miss Anya is there to help all the students learn. That's her job, and she wants to help you. It's about shifting their internal monologue from one of fear and self-doubt to one of quiet capability and realistic expectation. We're not just helping them prepare their words, we're helping them prepare their mindset, their inner stance. Throughout this whole process, our role is to be the calm, encouraging presence, their unwavering supporter. If they try and it doesn't go perfectly, perhaps they stammer or forget part of their question, or the teacher is a bit rushed, that's okay. That's part of learning, part of life. We can talk about it afterwards, back in that safe space at home. How did it feel when you asked your question? What went well? What felt tricky? What might you try differently next time? Or is there anything you learned from it? This debrief, done with kindness and curiosity, turns every experience, successful or not so successful, into a valuable learning opportunity. We're not aiming for them to suddenly become extroverted public speakers overnight. We're aiming for them to feel increasingly capable and less fearful about using their voice when they need to advocate for their own learning. It's a gradual unfolding, a slow blossoming, and our patient, consistent partnership is key to them feeling safe enough to keep trying, to keep stretching just a little bit outside their comfort zone. Now, while our main goal, our heart's desire, is to empower our children to communicate for themselves, to build that skill and confidence from within, there are times when it's absolutely appropriate and even necessary for us as parents to step in and collaborate with the teacher. This isn't about taking over or undermining our child's growing independence or being that parent. It's about building a supportive triangle: child, parent, and teacher, all working together for the child's well-being and success. Knowing when and how to do this with grace and effectiveness is really important. So when might it be the right time for us to reach out to the teacher directly? Perhaps if your child's fear or discomfort is significantly impacting their learning. Maybe they're missing crucial instructions or clarifications. Or if it's affecting their emotional well-being at school in a noticeable way. Maybe they're consistently coming home distressed about this. Or they're so anxious, they're developing tummy aches before school. Or they're avoiding schoolwork that requires any kind of teacher interaction. Or perhaps you've noticed a persistent pattern. Maybe your child has mentioned something specific about their interactions, or lack thereof, with the teacher that gives you a gentle nudge, a little whisper in your parent gut that a conversation might be helpful. It's not about jumping in at the first sign of shyness or a single uncomfortable moment, but more when you sense a persistent barrier that's proving too big or too overwhelming for your child to tackle alone just yet, despite your best efforts at home. And when we do decide to communicate with the teacher, the how is crucial. Our approach can make all the difference between a defensive reaction and a collaborative partnership. We want to come across as a partner, an ally in the child's education, not an accuser or a complainer. So, instead of starting with something like, "My child is scared of you," or "Why aren't you more approachable?" which can understandably put a teacher on the defensive, we could frame it more collaboratively, focusing on shared goals. Something like, "I'm reaching out because I'd love to work together to help Leo feel more comfortable asking questions in class. He's a thoughtful boy, but sometimes gets a bit anxious about speaking up. And I was wondering if you had any insights from your perspective in the classroom, or if there are ways we can support him both at home and at school to feel more confident. This opens the door for a constructive, problem-solving conversation. You could share some of the things you're working on at home, like practicing asking questions or helping him write things down. And perhaps gently inquire if the teacher has noticed similar hesitations or if they have any specific suggestions. Teachers often have a different perspective, seeing our children in a context we don't, and they might offer valuable observations or strategies. For example, a teacher might say, "Yes, I've noticed Leo is quiet during whole group instruction, but he often writes very thoughtful questions in his journal, so I try to respond there." Or, perhaps he could try asking me just before the bell rings when it's a bit quieter and there's less pressure from other students. They might also have their own established strategies for encouraging quieter students, and by opening this dialogue, you're creating an opportunity for those to be shared and perhaps even tailored a bit for your child's specific needs. It's also helpful to be specific, if possible, without betraying your child's confidence or making them feel exposed. For instance, if your child is particularly worried about asking silly questions, you might mention that you're helping them understand that all questions that help them learn are valuable. The teacher might then make an extra effort to reiterate this to the whole class or to your child privately in a reassuring way. The goal here is to build a bridge of understanding and support for your child, to create a more welcoming environment for their voice. It's about showing your child that you and their teacher are on the same team, their team, working together for their benefit. And often, just knowing that you've had a positive, supportive conversation with the teacher can be a huge relief for a child. It can make the teacher seem less like a distant, unapproachable authority figure, and more like another caring adult in their life who is genuinely invested in their success. This collaborative approach, used thoughtfully and sparingly, doesn't disempower your child. It actually creates a safer, more supportive environment in which they can continue to grow their own communication skills with greater confidence. Navigating these school challenges alongside our children, it truly is a journey, isn't it? There are so many tender moments, so many opportunities for us to lean in, to listen deeply, and to simply be that steady, reassuring presence they need as they find their way. Helping our children find their voice, especially when they feel small or uncertain in a big world like school, is one of the most profound ways we can support their growth into confident, capable human beings. It's not always about having all the answers or fixing everything instantly as much as we might want to. More often, it's about walking with them through their worries, validating their feelings instead of dismissing them, and gently, patiently, helping them discover the strength and courage that already resides within them, just waiting for a little encouragement to emerge. Every conversation where you truly listen, where you put down your phone and make eye contact, and just absorb what they're trying to tell you. Every time you validate their fear or their nervousness instead of brushing it aside. Every little practice session you have at home, even if it feels a bit silly at the time. These are all threads you're weaving into a stronger, more resilient connection with them. It's in these quiet, consistent moments that they learn not just how to talk to a teacher, but that they are understood, that they are capable, and that they are not alone in facing their challenges, big or small. This journey of fostering communication and confidence is a testament to the incredible power of compassionate, attuned parenting. It's about building understanding, not just of the school system or the individual teacher, but a deeper, more nuanced understanding of our own child's unique heart, their temperament, and their mind. And please remember, you are doing an amazing job. The very fact that you're here, spending your precious time thinking about this, seeking ways to support your child, speaks volumes about your love and your dedication. There will be ups and downs, moments of breakthrough where you see them bravely speak up, and times when it feels like you're taking a step back, when their anxiety flares again. That's all part of it. That's human. Trust in your ability to connect with your child. Trust in their inherent resilience. And know that every effort you make, no matter how small it seems in the moment, is planting a seed for their future confidence, their self-advocacy, and their overall well-being. You have such a powerful capacity to nurture that connection and help them navigate these waters with growing assurance and grace. If this conversation resonated with you today, and you found something helpful or reassuring in our time together, we'd be so grateful if you'd give this video a like. It helps others find their way here too. And if you know other parents who might be walking a similar path, who might be worrying about their own quiet child, please feel free to share it with them. We're all in this together, learning and growing alongside our children. And of course, if you'd like to join our Family Connection Hub community for more conversations like this, for more support and shared learning on this incredible, challenging, beautiful journey of parenting, we'd warmly invite you to subscribe. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We're sending you and your family so much warmth and encouragement.